Hey everyone, what is up? And welcome back to another episode of the Lifestyle Lifters Show. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Stuart Coyne. Stuart is an online fitness coach with a degree in human nutrition and a bachelor's in health and science. Stuart, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here, man.
Cheers for having me, man. I like the
Stuart.
intro.
Awesome stuff, awesome stuff. I know we were talking a bit off camera there, Stuart, but uh, let's start out with a bit of an icebreaker here, man. Share something about yourself that most people do not know. Putting you on the spot now.
I left school for a very small period in fifth year to become a butcher. I left school for about 2 months.
No way, man.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know this, but like I had a lot of difficulty with dyslexia in school.
Dyslexic, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I I was pretty bad. I mean, I was told at the age of 14 to pack it up now after third year in Ireland and go and do an apprenticeship. And obviously, hearing things like that, you're like, what the hell do I do? So then in fifth year, it was the same. I wasn't the best student either. I was always acting the bollocks. But yeah, I came home one day after I've been at a party, and my dad's like, you're going to work and butcher up the road. And that was that. Did that for about 2 months. And then I just said to my parents, I'm going back to school. I'm not stupid. I just need to put my head down, walk back into school as if nothing ever happened, cracked on, and then the rest is history.
Oh man. And let's actually just talk a bit more about your backstory, Stuart, because I know you met obviously in your current position as a coach, but that's not how it all started for you.
No.
Talk a bit about your journey from corporate into fitness and why you actually wanted to get into doing what you're currently doing.
Yeah. So it's funny because I do believe I have a very unique background, and I love seeing these coaches who help busy professionals, and I'm like, it's funny. I don't think you've ever been a busy professional yourself. Yeah, so I have a quite unique background in the sense that I went back to college when I was 23. I did health science, then I went on, I did human nutrition. And, I was fairly set on this is the path I'm going, especially nutrition. Like, I was just like, this is what I want to do. And I had to tie between going on to be a dietitian or getting in and getting a job. And I actually started an online company with a guy in from Leitrim, and it just didn't work. I was coming out of college, 28 years of age. We were trying to build a business. I was like, I'm not doing this. Like, not now. I need to get working and make some money. So I actually got a job with a really good company to be considered like a Fortune 500 company. They're a Japanese company. It's a sales role, so automation sales, very
Yeah.
very technical. But I was exposed to about 3 years of really hard graft. You're doing 60, 70 hours a week, flying back and forth to England. And I was covering a lot of Galway and all the medical device sectors. Basically, trying to sell high-end 3D vision systems. So I'm big into technology. So it was a really good job. It taught you a lot of good things about sales and how to manage your time and stuff. But I did hit a point where the work was going very well. I was getting promoted. I was doing very well in life, but I was just completely empty inside. And then, this is like just literally before COVID. There's a bad culture in Ireland with drink and drugs and stuff. And I was getting dragged into that a little bit in the weekends.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know Gavin Meaton, do you? He's an online
Yeah,
coach.
yeah. I know I wouldn't know him personally, but I know of him. Yeah.
So I reached out to Gavin because I was like, look, man, I'm doing well from the outside, but on the inside, I'm not happy. Like I was
Yeah.
really not happy. I was like, I have all these credentials. I know my shit inside out. I should be a coach. And I was seeing the likes of Sean Casey and that coming up online, and I was like, oh, why can't I do this? I know more than these guys, but these guys have learned how to make content, etc. Um, and I was like, what do I do? Like, and spoke to Gavin. Gavin's like, look, let's get you back into shape first and fall back in love with the process of health and fitness. So we did that, and then it was kind of Gavin that gave me the nudge. He's like, look, man, start doing stuff online, start making some content. And I was like, I absolutely hate it. I can't stand it. He's like, just grab your phone, go for a walk and talk shit. That was it. Started that and then downgraded my job a little bit to free up a bit more time. Focused, my spare time was heavily focused then on content. I was in pain management for a year as a clinical support specialist. And then that just allowed me to make more content in the evenings. Then I just grew a following. And then once I grew a following, my partner wanted to move out to the UAE and I just packed everything up and left. Didn't say that and just got up. We went. I think I didn't even tell the Irish government I left the country. Like I left on the 17th of August. Told the government, I think, back in Christmas. Yeah, I don't live here anymore, by the way. But yeah, so I'll be a year now into full-time employment or self-employment in August. So it's crazy. Like it's crazy how it worked out for me. It's one of those stories where you really don't know until you just go and give it a go.
Yeah.
Like you have so many ups and downs. Like one of the biggest reasons why I actually did prep was I knew coming into Christmas, like I kind of got that. So I was working with mentors and stuff, and I was like, I'm in a good position here. Like I can make a really good business. It was still, there was, still a lot going on. You know yourself, this industry is up and fucking down. You don't know from one week to the next sometimes. But I hit Christmas and I went home and I was like, right, I can make either a really good burst for this, or I can play around with this for another year and hope it works out. I was like, fuck that, I'm not doing that. Like, so I was like, what can I do? Because I knew the drink wasn't, socializing the weekends wasn't serving me as much as it once did. You know what I mean? I was getting depressed for 2 or 3 days post nights out and stuff. So I was like, yeah, I need to just cop on a little bit. I need to take a break from this shit. Like it's not helping me. I was like, what can I do? And I've always lifted. I've been lifting since I was 16, even though, some people are like, geez, you're not that big. Not how it works, man. But I've always been into it, and I knew I had something there. I was like, right, I know if I can get shredded, I might have something here. So I was like, what can I do that's going to, make sure I'm a lot more disciplined? That obviously I just knocked the drink in the head for a while. And then obviously how will that compensate business? Well, obviously I can only focus on business or
Yeah.
this. And I got a lot of inspiration from looking at Adam and actually Shane's story as well. I don't know if you know Shane.
Shane's story, yeah. He's the only person who's been on this podcast twice. I had him and Emma on a few weeks ago, and Shane was on one of the earlier episodes as well. Legend of a man.
Shane is he's like
Great guy.
when you say someone walks the walk and talks the talk, he's
Absolutely.
pinnacle of it in our industry. And I can say that hands down. The man knows his shit inside out, and he is an absolute gentle person. I worked with him for a small bit.
Did you actually because when I was on prep, I was following religiously his bodybuilding to or his powerlifting to bodybuilding prep series. Are you currently or have you watched or consumed any of that on YouTube?
Yeah, I have. Of course, I have. Yeah,
Yeah,
not a great deal. I like he's not. I've worked so obviously prep now, watching a lot of videos. I've just got into like the easy stuff, Josh Bridgman and stuff like that. I'm just kind of consumed by that. It's just an easy
yeah,
watch.
yeah.
But no, I definitely have. Yeah, no, I think Shane is very good. I think if he could present his content a little bit better or get help with that, the sky's the limit for him. You know what I mean? In the sense of it being a little bit more like for me and you, it's fine. We can sit down and we can indulge in it.
Yeah.
For the average person, it's probably just that little bit too much. But no, but like taking inspiration from then, I followed his story when he stepped on stage. I was like, fucking hell, this guy looks incredible. Like, and just I knew it was something for me, and yet I knew it was going to serve me quite well, and it did. Like this year, I've been. I mean, it's probably a little bit cliche. Has this saved my life in many ways in terms of helping my business get to where I wanted to go, and me learning a lot about myself in terms of maybe alcohol every weekend is not for me
Yeah.
anymore. I've learned a lot about myself, and I do not see myself going back to the old me. Like I seriously don't. Even when I finish this and I go back to Ireland, and this is not, it's not easy to say this, but there's certain friends that I won't be seeing anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the harsh reality of it. Though those people haven't moved on, I've moved on, and they need to cut that out of my life. And that's kind of what I've learned about prep. And it's almost addictive because you're so, like, my mind is always like, do I do another one now? If this goes well, do I do another one next year?
Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. No, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, first of all, I can relate to that journey from being I used to be a teacher, a permanent position in a fantastic, lovely school in Galway. And I made that pivot initially, Stuart, to full-time online. I came home on the Christmas, 18th of December 2020, to my mum in tears, having put me through college for 4 years and seen her son now leave. But thankfully it's worked out well. But it's the juice is absolutely worth the squeeze. And congrats in your first year, or you're almost finished your first year out, Stuart. And tell me, so like, you've been in the game of coaching for quite some time, just you're only full time now the past year. What is your current coaching philosophy?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, exactly what the Coyne method is what I'm doing right now. I do feel like I'm someone who walks the walk and talks the talk, and I'm trying to almost, you know, like, there's a lot of coaching styles out there at the moment, all right? And I think there's a lot of people that are trying to play the pity party, in the sense that they're trying to play in people's emotions. Oh, it's not your fault, you can't lose weight. I'm kind of more down the middle. I'm like, look, here's what the science says, and here's what you need to do. And if you have issues around that, then we need to address that. But more, my philosophy is like, no matter who you are, okay, and obviously there's people in the category that, obesity,
Yeah,
different, that's separate. I'm
outside
talking
of the outside of the norm,
outside of the
but
norm.
for the
Like,
masses.
for me, it's like, look, a lot of people can make a massive change, and they can use health and fitness to improve the quality of their life. And that's a massive thing for me, because obviously I've always used it. I've done very well. And like you, I can go back to a nice cushy career where I'm very safe if I want to. But throughout that, what is all, like, as I said, I've always done very well in corporate. I got a lot of promotions and stuff, is because I looked at everyone else around me. No one was training on a regular basis. I never let that go. Basic nutrition, bringing packed lunches to work and stuff. People, and I see this all the time. I'm like, these things are very easy to do.
Yeah.
And if you learn how to do basic food prep, meal prep, think a little bit ahead, do a shopping list on a Saturday, your life is actually less stress. Instead of typical, I have no time. You do have time. You know what I mean? Of course you have time. You just don't know how to use your time. So my philosophy is trying to show people that health and fitness can actually reduce the stress in your life, as opposed to the norm. I want to get healthy. I'm going to go gym now 6 times this week. I'm like, whoa. First of all, if you want to lose weight, it's not the gym. We need to address other aspects of your lifestyle first. But yeah, it's very much about trying to be realistic about it. And as I said, I'm not playing this pity party shit about people and their emotions. I'm more so like, I'm going to be the coach that will probably tell you what you don't want to hear, but I'm doing this for your benefit, as opposed to telling you what you do want to hear. And I'm very upfront with people, in the sense like, if you want to get results, I'll get you results. No problem. But this is what we have to do. And there has to be a bit of push and shove at the same time,
Yeah.
and a bit of reality check that, like, going out and living your best life every weekend, let's learn how to bring a bit of balance in here, just for a small period, to get you to where you want to get to. And then when you get there, then you can go back and you can do all that. There's like a short-term sacrifice for long-term gain.
Absolutely, yeah. I really like that approach, man. I like the PN philosophy there. It's like WWW. What do you want to do? What are you willing to do? What
Yeah.
won't you do? Okay, you want to look like Stuart 4 weeks out from Stefan's age. Are you willing to do 90 minutes of cardio a day, 6 strength sessions, and not drink for X amount of time? What won't you do? So it's just managing those expectations. I really like that approach, though, man. Just that, and I get that from your content too. I mean, for anyone who doesn't follow Stuart's content, I'll post the links in the show notes. But I love your meal prep videos. They're simple, they're effective, they're quick, convenient, and all tasty, real helpful whole food that anyone can make inside, a short period of time.
Yeah, I'm going to, the content's going to be a bit of a shock for people in the coming weeks. Like what you're seeing now is I'm building a studio here in the room, but yeah, I'm going to be a bit more forthcoming with my content, a bit more direct with things. Like obviously the meals and stuff are good, and that'll always stay there. But yeah, I have some stuff coming up.
Be prepared, everyone. Be prepared. And tell me, so from a personal point of view, what were some of the challenges that you underwent on your own fitness journey?
Are we talking prep? Or are we talking maybe not?
No, maybe not to the extreme of prep, but we'll just say
Oh,
getting in shape, and what were some things that you struggled with?
yes, I kind of go into two sides. First, when I started off, and then maybe when I was trying to get back into shape. But I think the biggest thing that I had when I was starting off was there was never any clarity. I remember walking into a gym and you just see some massive guy who's clearly off his head in deep ball, and you just didn't know. You're like, what do I do? And there was no fitness instructors. There was no nothing. Like I got my gym membership when I was 16. My
Yeah.
tortured my parents for a membership, but so you learned all that from them, you know. And I remember like speaking to one big guy, he's like, he's like, you need to take protein. And I was like, how many scoops a day do I take? He's like, 4. I'm like, all right. Just like what? So like I was always fascinated by why do I need to take 4? Why do I need to do chest press incline versus, I was always obsessed with that. Um, and I did architectural technology for a year first in Letterkenny when I was 18, 19. And I remember all I did was spend all day on YouTube when YouTube was just coming out, just watching, health and fitness videos, like
Yeah.
obsessed with. Um, so yeah, that was kind of like my biggest challenge. Like, why am I doing these things? How do I get the most out of these things? And then I suppose challenges as you kind of learn, you get your own grips with things. Probably the only challenge I ever really had, because I've always been in relatively good shape, was when I went into the corporate life. I was trying to
Yeah.
balance an extremely busy job. Like I was doing maybe say 10, 12 hours a day on the road. And then I was trying to train. So then I had to kind of bring that. I had to be a lot more clever with my training. I couldn't go in and do an hour and a half anymore. It was like 45 minutes going and get the session done. And I had to try and do that whilst traveling. We went to England quite a bit, maybe once, twice a month. So then I started to look at like, right, how can I incorporate realistic, convenient foods on the go? And the challenges that I felt or faced were stuff that now I kind of help people with. So a simple little thing, right, will be, you're traveling and you hear this all the time. You're in the shop and you end up buying fucking absolute shit.
The
Like that.
breakfast roll, yeah, all the goodies, the deli.
But like the little things I started to notice was I would just have a packet of cereal bars from Lidl in the car. So I'm like, I'm not spending €3 on a fulfill bar when I have a cereal bar. I know it's not as good, but at least I know, cool, one of these, it'll help with the craving. I'd have apples. I started bringing cooler bags, packed lunch. I'd
Yeah.
leave like the 12 liter, the 2 liter bottles of water in the car. I would only, allow myself to buy one coffee. And I started doing all this. And then I started sharing it with the guys because that's what I was kind of struggling with. And then everyone else was like kind of getting benefit from it. I was like, okay, maybe there's something here. But once I started to get a grip on that, then I brought Gavin on board and it was really accountability. I think I don't know why people don't express this, but accountability is massive. And people think it's a bad thing. I'm like, listen, and even I see this with online coaches, they won't say that they have their own coach.
Yeah.
Why would you say that? Like you're a coach. Just like every coach has a coach. You know what I mean? Like Josh Bridgman is a coach of many people, but he has a coach, and then his coach is a fucking coach. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like
Exactly.
shared. So the biggest thing for me, challenges was I wanted to get, I was okay shape, but I wanted to get into good shape. and I needed accountability, and I almost needed someone like Gavin to kind of, get like what I would turn the boy into the man. I needed someone from the outside to go, are you taking the piss? Like Gavin was very much like, Stuart, like the fuck you doing if I made a mistake in a nice way. And I needed that. Like one thing that as I said about the pity party, I think people are just a little bit too nice sometimes about things. Sometimes, and maybe there's a gender thing here, but for me, anyways, I would rather another man come to me and say, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're acting the bollocks. This is not right. I'm like, shit, okay. It hits home for me a little bit more, and I feel like I'm letting that person down. And then I'm able to put a little bit of work in and move forward. And that was the biggest challenge I had. Just didn't have that accountability. Brought Gavin on board, and that
And
completely
that's
changed.
where, yeah, yeah. And then transition that onto your own personal client, Stuart. What are some of the common challenges that maybe some of your clients are facing with that you try help and address them with?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is patience. Seriously,
Yeah.
like in the sense that,
Expectations and patience. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I think and you learn as you coach more people, you do learn before they jump onto the program. You gotta tell them how it is. Like I often hear, oh, is it, I'm 4 weeks in, is it expected to, not really lose any weight? I'm like, okay, let's dial in your last 4 weeks. You've been to 3 weddings, you haven't had one run at this, and you've only tracked consistently for 5 days in a row. Is it realistic to be where you're at? Yeah, of course it is. We're not dialing in the very basics, and it takes time, and people need to understand that essentially what we're trying to do is change your lifestyle. Like your current lifestyle does not serve you at the moment. And we need to address that. We need to make slight changes. And that takes time. And we need to, very little things. You know what I mean? Are you doing your shopping on the weekends? Because the worst thing, and what always happens to people, is they've no prep. And I'm not talking, people have this idea that they need to have 7 meals in that hour. No, no. You just need chicken in the fridge, maybe cook a little bit of rice or microwavable rice, some cereals, little bars. Once you have them, then it's very hard not to fuck up. It's when you don't have them and then you have this mental battle of what do I do now? Do you know what I mean? And I think you're trying to teach people that you're trying, like, when you tell people, even if you tell people online, prepping is probably one of the best things you can do. They're just like, next, scroll, don't want to hear it. Like, you don't want to hear it because it's the
They're
best
in
fucking
denial.
story.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Absolutely. I think you touched on an important point there. And I genuinely think it is one of the silent killers for people's fat loss, and that is your food, your environment.
mm,
Environment is everything. Like I was
100.
speaking to someone yesterday, and she's still living at home now. And I know the challenges too when you're living at home and you're in the parents' house and there's freaking biscuits, there's bread,
Yeah.
there's all of that good stuff. Unconsciously, when you
Mm,
see something on the table with no intention of eating it, all of a sudden you're two Oreos deep and you're about to dip into the third one. Whereas when
mm.
you control that food environment, when you, as you said, you have some meat prepared, you have some packaged rice, you might have some boiled eggs, it just makes the process so much easier.
But
What are some other fat loss tips, Stuart, that you find are helpful just for the mass here?
I think, and certainly what I've learned a lot about prep, and then, I've been reading a lot into Menno Henzeman. I don't know if you look at him, I don't know if it's in the second name right, but he's big on the art of like self control. Like, a lot of people say discipline, and it just goes to the environment. Oh, I don't have the discipline. It's like, you can't train discipline. You either have discipline or you don't. Like that's a fact. We know that from science. You can't just train someone to be a disciplined person, but you can with control, and that obviously touches on your point. Can you control your environment a little bit? But there's other aspects that you can control. Can you make sure that you are getting a good breakfast in? And like, this is where things are going a bit down the shitty route online at the moment. Everything is about really nice, highly palatable, high protein foods. And don't get me wrong, I'm in that category who's at fault of that. The issue with that is if you're waking up first thing in the morning and you're eating oats with a fucking Kinder Bueno inside it, you are going to have cravings for the rest of the day. And that's basic science. You're going to raise glucose levels. It's going to be a very, very difficult process for you. First meals and food choices are not being considered enough.
Crucial. Yes.
Right?
Amen,
And
brother.
it's needs to be, even by some of the bigger guys, they're not talking about it. And that's kind of where I'm saying there's a lot of harsh content my way coming. But first meal of the day, high protein, high fiber foods. That's why I've been banging about oats the last 3 or 4 weeks. Um, and food selection throughout the day. Like, one thing I see people is, oh yeah, they have something like a protein bar. Oh yeah, it has 20 grams of protein. I'm like, yeah, but you're eating a bar first thing in the morning. It's a
Yeah.
bar, right? 200 calories. I can get you a bowl of cereal that's 3 times the size of that. All right. Do you know what I
It's
mean?
it's it's a glorified bar of chocolate with 20 G's on it. That's all it is.
So yeah, I think, um, yeah, like food choices. We've gone down this route of calories in versus calories out, but I'm literally going back to be like, look, food choices for 80% of your day is actually very, very important.
Yeah.
Really important if you're not having high protein, high fiber foods. And even the idea of why would you have these? Well, I mean, these foods take longer to digest, to take up a lot more space. What
Yeah.
people don't realize is your stomach has sensors inside them. And within those, if you don't fill your stomach up to a certain amount, those sensors are not activated, which means you're going to constantly get signals to the brain saying, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. And that's what happens when people eat something that's high calorie, low volume. Whereas you flip that a little bit, if you go higher volume and something that takes longer to digest, like protein fiber, you're going to be a lot more satiated. And this is not rocket science, This is just people not willing to compromise it. I'm not eating
Yeah.
that. I'm like,
It, it's lack
fucking
of convenience.
go.
Yeah. I actually heard though, just going off that, you see, this is why I love long form content. I was talking to Brian and he was saying like you're just much better off chatting to people on podcasts and just in general, it's like you can't address the nuances of all of these things inside a 30-second or 60-second reel, but it's easier to dive into them in more detail on things like this. But we just spoke about Shane's story there, and he put up on his stories in IG podcast he listened back to and Sigma Nutrition with Danny Lennon. It was only published as of recording this August 2023. And an interesting study where two groups they were consuming the same number of calories, but the first group they had like a 300 calorie breakfast, 500 calorie lunch, and a 700 calorie dinner. The other group was the reverse: 700 calorie breakfast, 500 calorie lunch, and 300 calorie dinner. And the idea was that is it better to eat light in the morning and bigger at the end of the day, or vice versa when it came to fat loss? And interestingly, even though all things equated equal, calories were equal, the group who had the bigger breakfast and the more satiating meal first thing in the morning, they
Yeah.
actually lost more weight over the controlled period of time, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, no, it doesn't surprise me. Like, and then because you got to think about the way the body works. Obviously, first thing in the morning, you're going to need as much energy as you possibly can. Now, obviously, like if you're someone that had a lot of food the night before,
Yeah.
then have a big breakfast in the morning, and that's the issue with that. But I think like because this is funny. I've been getting slated about this in TikTok recently. Breakfast propaganda. You work for Kellogg's. I'm like, guys, you're so fucking stupid. Like, okay, let's address it this way: meal one, meal two, meal three, meal four. Doesn't matter what time you get that in at. No, there is preference. Like, you know what I mean. Does it come down to the individual? What way do you work and stuff? But obviously, the first meal is absolutely crucial because that's what sets you up for the day. So if that's higher in calories, has a better protein and fiber content, you're gonna make it more easier to get to meal one to meal two. And that's where people struggle. The snack in between, you know what I mean? The eat shit between, or then the snack disrupts the hunger for meal two. You skip meal two, then meal three becomes a large meal. So I suppose really like, yeah, if you can get a good meal in, it does make sense first thing in the morning that the rest of it should have
It
almost a domino effect.
it stabilized like That's why when people say, they start the day with the coffee and then they're on the go and they grab the croissant and they grab the protein bar and then at lunch it's like, a peanut butter and a bit of rice cake. It's like, but by the time they get to dinner, they haven't had a freaking. They're only eating baby calories. They're just snacking throughout the day, and it's just as you said, sitting down, eating more meals. I'm a big believer in, and reduce the snacking in between. Let's have a big lunch or a big breakfast, a big lunch, a big ass dinner, maybe one snack, as you said, meal one, two, three, and four, and eliminate the picking and the, you know,
The
the
great.
in between calories, which always add up.
But like sometimes I'm kind of like, when I'm talking to my clients, like, oh, I'm coming home and snacking, I'm like, right, well, let's talk about this. What have you ate during the day? And exactly what you described. Oh, well, I didn't have anything for breakfast. Then I had just a couple of rice cakes and like an apple for lunch. And then I came home and I just couldn't stop eating snacks. I'm like, when you came home, was there anything prepared? Was there anything in the fridge? Was there anything that was going to take you 5 minutes to eat? Like that's, satiating. Like, no, it required effort. Yeah, well, like you gotta think about your brain from an evolution standpoint here. Your brain knows the quick and easy option that requires less effort is to go to the press and just eat the bar when you're making the food. But then you're just going to overconsume because you're hungry. And what a lot of people don't talk about or understand about cravings is the only way to suppress a craving is actually starve it. If you give into it, you're fucked. Like that is true. And I see all this bullshit in social media. Oh, if you have a craving, just eat it. Oh, that's a bad idea. Like, but if you don't have that, and if you have to go through this mental battle of do I, satisfy the craving, or do I have, spend 30 minutes cooking a dinner? Anyone, even me, I'm going to choose the craving because it's so easy. It's 2 minutes. So you have to look back a little bit and go, right, cool. Next time I get home, I'm hungry. I'd better make sure there's something there where I can just pull out the fridge, reheat it. At least my brain knows this is only going to take me 5 minutes to prepare, and then it's going to be a much easier process.
Absolutely. What would you do differently if the same thing happens again? I really like that approach, man. Interesting. And let's just kind of transition slightly then into obviously we're talking all things fat loss and food environment, knowing yourself, having a good satiating meal to start the day. What would you say are some common tip or mistakes that you see people make then in the gym, Stuart, when it comes to training?
Not training hard enough. Like not understanding that it's not enough to go in there and just tick the boxes. Like a lot of
Yeah.
my clients when they're new, I will put them onto the machine stuff. I don't program in squats and stuff like that unless it's very specific to the individual. And they're a bit more advanced. But for the average person, I will always say, cool, we're going largely with machines, combination of some dumbbell stuff so you can get used to that. And obviously what we're trying to do here, and like I'm using trainerized, so I will
Yeah.
literally look at what they lift, unlike certain coaches, but I will look at the data big time, and I will make sure that I give them a rep range usually of 8 to 12, and the way I explain it to them is get to 12 reps with a waist with something that's challenging, right? If you feel like you can do 2 or 3 more, I want you to increase the weight. Then
Yeah.
you'll start to naturally fall into that 10 category. I'll give it a week or two and I'll say, cool, that 10 needs to become a 12 or it needs to become an 8. Either or, we need to increase the reps or we need to increase the weight. We have to start doing some progressive overload. And I think that's the biggest challenge for a lot of people. To go in, they just think it's enough to just swing the legs and the leg extension, and that's it. No understanding of rest periods, of how to effectively stimulate the muscle, and there's almost a fear as well. I see a lot of people like, I'm afraid I'm going to hurt myself. I'm like, you're not going to hurt yourself. Like, with a crazy leg press with technique done wrong, maybe, or a squat, not with a leg extension, leg
Yeah.
curl, chest press. Can't go wrong with these. Um, but yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people fail to understand, that there is a way of going about your training, even the structure of it. I think people think they have to go in and, I'll often see when I'm in the gym myself, and I don't want to intervene, but I see someone like, going from, let's say, a lat pull down to a leg extension or something like that. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what's your objective here? Like, you
Yeah.
know. But
Yeah. Yeah, I think you touched on two big ones there, progressive overload and trying to better yourself by even 1% every week. I would say just on top of that, from my own standpoint, and I probably fell victim to this myself, Stuart, back in the day, and that was program hopping. You know, watching a YouTube video from some influencer and you're doing his program one week or her program, and then the next week you're starting something new. Everything does work, but nothing works forever. And if you're not giving your body a chance to actually adapt to something and you're
yeah,
just changing it up every week, it's going to be very hard to make. Like you and I are both want to become fluent in Spanish. All right. You do Spanish 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for the next 6 weeks. I do Spanish on a Monday, French on Wednesday, German on Friday. Who's going to be better or more advanced come the end? It's the exact same with training.
yeah, no, I agree. And to probably that's probably the biggest one, to be fair, that you just touched on there, like people jumping from program to program to program. And like I it's something I've experienced with my own clients. I'd had them on the same program for months. They'd be like, "Oh, can we change it up after 2 weeks?" I'm like, "How do we know if we're getting stronger if we keep changing the
Yeah,
program?"
yeah, yeah.
So
It's
and they're like, "Oh yeah, I didn't realize that."
I'm curious though on your end, and everyone's opinion is different. So just for anyone listening, there's no one right or one wrong approach, and every coach is a different method. But how often typically would you change up your client's program?
I would change it in the sense where nothing changes in terms of what we're doing. Like the
Yeah.
approach is still the same. I would make alternatives, like
Yes.
maybe
Yeah.
like that, like they're progressing from. A, so right, the way I actually program is, say if someone's doing a 3 day split, an upper lower upper, right? I'll make sure that the two upper sessions have the same. We're activating the same muscle groups, but the variation is slightly different. So it might be a
Yes.
chest with an incline dumbbell press the following day. All right. Now, if they come and they say, I want to change it up, I'll say, why? What's wrong with the program? You know, oh, I'm in a new gym and it doesn't have this. Cool. No worries. Let's adapt everything around your new environment. But other than that, I don't change it too much. I seriously don't. But if this, like people, even I don't know whether I'll show people or not, but a lot of my prep was done in a fucking, I wouldn't say the most stacked gym. I had a barbell, I had some heavy dumbbells, I had a machine, a cable machine, a Smith machine. I've been using like the gym here in the complex. And then I've been using the gym down the road, but I didn't have an industrial gym. I think people are so
Yeah.
upset. I need this equipment. I need this. I'm like, guys, it's muscle activation. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
way of doing this.
It's honestly, man, like strength training at its core, it's boring, man. It's boring as hell. You're going to be, if you're in this game for the long run, you're going to be doing the same 10 or 15 exercises for the rest of your life. And there might be, as you said, just a bit of variety there. You might go from an incline to a flat to a decline. You might go from a deficit deadlift to an elevated deadlift, but you're still doing the same boring,
I
consistent
think
movements consistently. And that is how you get results.
well, I always like I have a couple of clients who've kind of gotten really into the weightlifting side of things, and some of them have kind of said, "Oh, it kind of gets boring after a while." I was like, "No, no, you're looking at this the wrong way, right? Like I've been doing this for years. I never get bored. The reason why is I always set myself targets. Like learn how to create a mind muscle connection with every fucking lift because you can always get better. Always. Like even to this day, I was only watching a video on YouTube the other day of someone doing like a single arm row. I was like, fuck, I never really implement that final little twist or that full extension, looking at a lot of like Mike Israel's sort of stuff.
Yeah, I love him from Renaissance.
Yeah, like you have to go in with a mentality of like, today I'm going to try and, last week I got 8 reps, I'm going to try and get 9, and I'm going to try and make sure there's a bit more of a squeeze than the lats, or, I feel a little bit more of a mind muscle connection. or I get a bigger pump. You know what I mean? That's the exciting part of it. You know what I mean? Even though it might seem boring to the average person, but that's how you make it interesting to you internally. You know, it's a challenge. You got to become a little bit better and a little bit more, almost like a perfectionism, or perfectionist. You're trying to chase something that doesn't exist, but if you don't try and chase it, then you're never going to get better at it. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
you're not fucking stupid exercises. Yeah, you gotta play around with stuff, obviously, but you also gotta be, you gotta be critical. How can I feel that a little bit more? Because sometimes, say, a bicep extension, you might feel a bit of an overload in the anterior delt or something like that. It just simply means you're not engaging in your bicep a little bit more. What can you do? Right, I better switch to preacher curl or something, so you can get a bit more stimulus out of that. They're the things that are exciting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, just, but
Maybe to
it's
me and you,
yeah,
but
yeah, no, but it's that marginal gains though, man. And I think progress for anyone, whether it's just like there's nothing more satisfying even than just adding 1.25 kilos to the bar week to week. Like
I can't
you
believe
know, you walk out in the gym in cloud nine and no one else gives a damn, but you know that you just got yourself that bit better. I'm really with you on that on the training, Stuart. But
sometimes like I do 10 reps, but then next week I might do 11 and they're crisp. I'm like, fuck, that was really solid. I feel really good, you know. But yeah, I think I'm holding you up there, mate. Sorry.
no,
But yeah.
not at all. Not at all, man. No, I just briefly want to pivot to something I heard you speak about on a previous episode was obviously, getting some help. And I think there's a stigma in Ireland, particularly amongst guys, in fact.
Mm,
I don't know, is it an ego thing? That it's like it's getting help and getting support, it's almost seen as a sign of weakness rather than a sign of
yeah.
strength. And I heard that you speak about on another episode, which I thought was, really, really, first of all, brave of you to speak out on, that you yourself even would have got some therapy where you just
Mm.
felt that you were in a bit of a dark place and you needed some additional support. Would you mind just talking us through what that looked like for you, Stuart, and just go into that in a bit more detail?
Absolutely. So I touched on, like, before I worked with Gavin, I was doing well with corporate, but
Yeah,
there was stuff going on the weekends that I didn't enjoy. Ireland is, as much as I love Ireland, don't get me wrong, there's a bad drinking culture there. And now there's obviously even bigger issues with drugs in the weekends. And I was participating in that. And look, you know what I mean? I was like, this is what's going on, this is the crack, but I wasn't happy about it. I don't want to go into too much detail with that, but essentially I was in a situation where I was waking up every Saturday and Sunday with just chronic fear and depression. And the only way I could get around that was by going back down to the pub and watching football and acting the bollocks or whatever. And it was a very vicious cycle for a while, for a couple of months, not just a couple of weeks, a couple of months. Um, but I do think it's hard to relate to say there's obviously an issue with it out there, but for me personally, I've never been afraid to go out and seek help from anyone. Okay. And I know there's lads out there in the air and there's a bit of a stigma. If I felt like I wasn't, running on all four cylinders, or if I was going down a bad path, I was never afraid to reach out and ask people for help. And there was that stage, I think it was just before COVID. Yeah, I think it was 2019. And I knew I wasn't sure whether I was just so unhappy with my job or what was going on, but I knew I was drinking on the weekends and I was acting the bollocks with the wrong people, right? And that needed to change. That needed
yeah,
to change. Because I was like, I didn't work so hard, get into corporate, do all well in life just to fuck this up and live this vicious life. So I reached out and I got help, yeah, with a counselor, a really nice woman, and she tore me to shreds inside out for good reasons, in the sense made me have a big hard look at myself and what possibly could go wrong if I continued on that path. And it was the best thing I ever did, because as soon as I finished with her, I started working with Gavin, and it was like, I had some issues that I needed to address that I
yeah.
wasn't.
I love it, man.
Um, and she helped me recognize that. She identified there was issues with drink, there was issues with the social aspects of drinking and maybe the people that you're involved with. And I needed to change that. And I did. And I addressed that. Then I started working with Gavin, and he very much helped me, go from a man or a boy to a man. And like, I can't thank Gavin enough, like, because he was very much like, you have a chance here. No, I didn't believe that I'd have my own coaching business. And Gavin was the only person at the time who was like, I
You
don't
saw
care what
that
you're doing.
potential. Yeah.
And like, when I say I had a good job, I had a very good job. I had a brand new
Yeah.
audio. I had very good salary. People were like,
Yeah.
you're crazy dropping all this. And Gavin was like, listen, mate, don't hit your fucking 40s and regret all this.
Get
Seriously.
me.
And I mean, that fucking hit me hard. I was like, fuck
Yeah.
it. He's right. What's 1 year? I can always jump back into this shit. So, like, yeah, I suppose seeking help, sometimes you got to realize that, I think everyone knows there's something wrong. Everyone knows they don't feel right a little bit. There's something a bit off. If you're waking up every Sunday or Monday going, same bullshit again, you need to address that. You have to take ownership over that. And maybe sometimes taking ownership is the first step of like, I'm not happy here. I need to go out here and speak to someone. And there is an issue with it in Ireland. I'm fortunate that my parents are quite open. My dad has gone through his own stuff, and he was like, look, go speak to someone. You don't have to speak to us. Go speak to someone. So
Yeah.
I'm quite fortunate with
Amazing.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think but it all comes back to some degree, environment again. Like we're
Mm.
talking about environment for fat loss, but this environment, it's not just food environment, but then your mindset, that's going to be who you're hanging around with. I can relate to something similar. It was literally as I was teaching, it was living for the Friday, going out on the Saturday, waking up on Sunday, hungover, the Monday fears we call it on Sunday evening. And there's a lot of power in proximity and who you hang around with and who you're talking to and even who you're consuming information from online. And if you are somebody listening and you're currently unhappy with where you're at, one of the easiest ways to fast track results is find someone who's there where you want to be and either pay for their mentorship, consume their content, read their books, listen to their podcasts, whatever that might be for you. So you're developing that mindset away from who you where you're currently at to where you want to move towards. And you mentioned that you got some support. I got therapy myself. One of the best things that I ever did. I was listening to like I'm not sure. Are you aware of Lewis House? He's kind of in the self-development space. And I've got mentors in business, I've got mentors in fitness. We've done a lot of personal development in just leveling up nutrition and training. But something he spoke about that really helped him was the emotional side and just addressing the mindset too. And this was a scenario that I never really dived into, but it's so empowering, and it feels really good to get an alternative opinion and just get your thoughts off your chest, and hear that a lot of people are actually struggling or challenged in some similar way. But now here's the problem. Let's now focus on the solution. And as you said there, you're very, very solution orientated. You didn't just feel sorry for yourself and say, I'm going to be doing this 9 to 5 good corporate job. You focus on the solution, and that's got you to where you currently are today.
Like, one thing there that you said was, and this is what really annoys me about people. Like, they want to be something or they want to be someone, but they won't invest in it. And what you mentioned there
Yeah.
was, if you want something, I looked at Gavin, right? And I was like, I want that. I want to do what he's doing in many ways. Not his coaching philosophy is very different to mine, but I wanted to do what he did, And I
Yeah.
went, I paid him, I worked with him, and now I'm doing exactly what he's doing a year
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things where, like, and like, I wouldn't have even, I will honestly sit here and say it wasn't even that crazy amount of money. The money that I
Yeah.
paid is invaluable, and I can't thank that man enough. You know what I
Oh,
mean? I worked with him for 6 months, and me and him went from this journey of me working a corporate job, being very unhappy, going through a little bit of therapy, to him being the only person at the time who actually fucking believed me. And I think he knew I can think that I wanted to get back into that. Gavin knew me from Sligo when I was studying up there, and he was nudging me and nudging me and nudging me. And now, I'm going back. So I left Ireland last year. I'm going back to Ireland this year, and I'm meeting Gavin. And before I left, me and Gavin stopped working together. I used to do other stuff on. But I'm going back now to Ireland, meeting Gavin, being like, Gavin telling me like, I told you so. Like, look where you're
Yeah,
at.
that's amazing, man. Yeah,
It's crazy.
you can pay in money or you can pay in time.
That's
And
it.
I'd much rather pay in money than pay in time.
100%. That's why it annoys me even when I have calls with people and you can help them and you can help them, and it's like, look, this is the investment. It's too much. I'm like, what's too much? You sitting there being in the exact same position this time next year, or cracking on and getting where you want to go to. And I think people are just, they don't see it, like they don't understand it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to say for, I suppose, are you ready for fat loss? Are you ready to take on a challenge, or are you not? Because I feel like if you're not willing to invest in yourself or make those changes, then you're not ready. And that's okay. That is okay. I think people need to understand that, because I didn't wake up one day and say, oh, I'm going to ring Gavin meeting. I thought about it for about fucking 3 or 4 months, before I made that decision to go and actually get in a call with him and then pay for his coaching service. So yeah, it's just something worth to point out to people. You're not always going to be ready to do things straight away. You got to give it time. It's got to circulate in the head a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, but pain can be a great teacher too. It's the call to action where you've reached a point where you've had enough, and that's where you start focusing on the solution rather than just, feeling sorry for yourself and looking at the problem. Stuart, man, this has been amazing. Really enjoyed our conversation, everything from fat loss, social media, training, mindset. To wrap it up, I'll just do a quick fire final 5 questions, Stuart. So first one is, what is one new habit that you've implemented inside the last year? I'm sure there's going to be plenty now that you're on prep, but one new habit, Stuart, that you've implemented.
Uh, Planning ahead. So like planning on a Sunday, I would sit down, not even always on Sunday, but most weeks or even days beforehand, I'll sit down and I'll have an idea. I'll try and pick 3 things I'm going to do, which is
Yeah,
important as business. Well, planning, and we all know you're meant to do it, but it's something I've started to incorporate, and it's fuck me, it saved my life. Just
unreal.
stress
Unreal, man. Yeah,
planning.
platinum. Everyone can take that advice. Second question, Stuart. When you think or when you hear the word successful, who's the first person that comes to mind?
Ooh, Jesus, that is a tough one. And maybe just because I'm watching a lot of them right now, but looking at a lot of Chris Bumstead. But
Yeah,
the only reason I'm saying successful is because he's done it in his own way. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
success is not about fame, fortune. There's a lot more to it, a lot more substance to it. Like success to me would be the fact that I'm running my own business. That's success. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not making X amount per month, but the success aspect is getting there. And the reason why I say Chris is because that guy has just gone through so much. Like I watched his
yeah.
recent podcast with Chris Williams.
Chris Williamson, unreal, man.
Good, so good. So to me, that's success. I'm like, how can I
Yeah,
be more like that
unreal.
man?
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah.
massive, but in terms of a person,
But there's many disciplines to it. No, I'm absolutely with you on that, man. If you could go back to when you started, what's one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self?
um, be a little bit more patient. These things take time. They
Yeah.
take time, and not as much as you want. When I say patience, stop trying to do a million things at once. Focus on fucking 1 or 2 things, nail them, and then move on.
I love it. I love it. Follow one course until successful. That's what FOCUS is an acronym for. Second last one. What do you feel is the most underrated gym exercise, Stuart, that most people should do more of?
Ooh, the most underrated one. probably the Romanian deadlift
Yeah,
with a little bit more
great
emphasis
exercise.
on the lower back. I think the deadlift is the risk versus reward is a little bit too high. Romanian deadlift is a little bit safer, but you're using a lot of muscles at the lower back, where a
Yeah,
lot of people.
great exercise. Love that one. Absolutely. And final question, Stuart. What is one question that you wish people asked you more of?
Jesus Christ. I don't know, to be honest with you. I really don't. Um, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure, man. I don't know how to answer that one. Like I do maybe wish people were a little bit more technical with their approach. Like and probably online, it's probably Stuart just makes a couple of meals. It's like there's a lot more. I have 2 science degrees. I know my shit inside
Yeah,
out. So maybe yeah, being a little bit more forthcoming with that sort of stuff. But
yeah.
that's probably down to the way I deliver my content, which is why I say there's a lot of changes coming.
Excited to see you. And Stuart, man, this has been amazing. So for anyone who wants to follow your journey, your page, your what you have to offer, where is the best place to send them to, Stuart?
Yeah, the Instagram is the biggest one at the moment. So the Coin method is probably the easiest one to get me on. TikTok as well. TikTok's blown up recently over the most bizarre videos, but it is what it is.
So perfect. So at the Coin method on Instagram. And if anyone here listening did get value from the show, please share it on your stories. So Stuart is at the Coin method. Be sure to tag him, tag me at Mac Lifestyle Fitness. And Stuart, final question before we wrap it up, because this is the Lifestyle Lifters show. What is your definition of living a successful lifestyle?
Um, it's finding the cliche one, finding balance, but like I'm not talking about fucking balance, living your best life, this, that, and the other. And what I mean is finding something that you truly enjoy and formulating your life around that, working your life around that. So obviously my passions is lifting and nutrition, and I've managed to create a career around it. I work a lot, but I enjoy it. I don't socialize as much as I would like to, but then the benefits of that is I'm able to do the things that I enjoy a lot more. So try like not the definition of balance of 9 to 5, coming home watching Netflix for 4 or 5 hours. I'm talking about balance, but things you truly enjoy. You know what I mean?
That give you
Incorporate that.
fulfillment. I love it. Man, Stuart, this has been amazing. Thanks so much again for hopping on. Really, really honestly enjoyed. Appreciate your honesty. Really, really love this chat. And I know anyone listening will feel the same way. So just thanks so much again. I will post the links to Stuart's IG in the show notes there. Everyone make sure that you give him a follow. Amazing content he's putting out. And Stuart, you're one of the real good guys in the game and keep doing what you're doing, man.
Cheers, mate. Thanks very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.